the book of Numbers. So we've got a whole book in the Old Testament called Numbers. What does this mean? Well, why would that be important? Well, it's in these wilderness wanderings, and that's what the book of Numbers was originally called, in the wilderness, that we find God commanding a census. A census is simply a record of the number of people, how many Israelites there were, mainly how many male heads of the household there were, and from that we find a list of the families. What does the book of Numbers show us? Well, contextually, we see it fits in the Torah as a description of the wilderness wandering times, these 38 years in which Israel is going to wander. They were only supposed to take this about 11-mile journey 11-day journey from Egypt to Canaan. And during this time, be prepared to go in and conquer the Canaan land and conquer the cultural groups that were there, the people groups, and take the promised land. But because of their disbelief in God and sin, it would pass on that responsibility to the next generation. A whole generation of Israel, save Joshua and Caleb, would die in the wilderness. And Numbers describes that time. Well, what are some of the lessons we learn from that? And how do we see the gospel? First, every life matters. Think about that for a moment. Why would a book be called Numbers? Because each number represented a heart. Each number represented an individual's life. Each number represented a family. And in God's economy, God doesn't care just about kings and queens, presidents and leaders. God cares about every individual. God cares about you. Now, we also see that not only does every life matter, but everybody's sin affects the entire community. In that day, the sin of the people affected the entire nation. In our day, our sin affects our entire church community and really the world. So how do we see the gospel? Just as Moses had to lift up the serpent in the wilderness in the book of Numbers, that people would look on it and be saved, Jesus Christ in John chapter 3 would refer to himself as that serpent. The same exact picture that he would take on the sin of the world. And just as they looked at the bronze serpent to be healed, we look to Jesus. The gospel is clearly seen in the midst of wilderness wandering because in our sin, God sent a Savior, and his name is Jesus.